Hello, and greetings, all my fellow scooter heads. This is John coming at you with a breaking news report about the Dualtron X2. Currently, John decided to get him a set of new tires to put on the Dualtron X2, even though the ones that he have on his scoot are not 100% wore out. And so, in deciding to get new tires to put on his scoot, bam! Those are the new tires that he got. John, in thinking that the job would be an easy peasy job, proceeded to cautiously go about changing the tires on the Dualtron X2. So what I did is I took some WD-40 and I sprayed the screw areas. And I let that sit for 24 hours overnight. And then I took a little light punch, and I tapped gently on the screws to try to make sure that they were loose whenever I went at them with my hex keys. I got a variety of hex keys in order to perform the job. Here are the keys that I got, actually. And in addition, I even got all kinds of sets with handles and drills. Everything that I could possibly think of that I would need to complete the job, I got it. Cautiously, I proceeded. The first screw. I literally felt this screw, and let me put it under the light so you can see it real good. So, here's the screw. I literally felt the head of this screw twist slightly whenever I tried to take it out. So, and if you notice, it probably has a little bent look to it because I gently got it out by screwing as slow as I possibly could. But you might notice that white substance on the head of the screw. That's how much of the screw actually is holding that motor onto the rim, because the holes that are actually in the rim, and let me get the rim so I can show you what I'm talking about. Here's the rims. The holes that are actually in the rims, and that might be a little too much light, but the holes that are actually in the rims are not threaded holes. They are holes that the screw goes through, as you can see. And I'll pull that back out. And then when they go through the rim, they attach to the motor. The motor has a threaded hole in it where the screw goes in and it attaches. So that's what's holding the rim onto the motor. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these screws. Now the thing about these screws is that they're cheap screws. But after getting the screw out, I noticed that, guess what was used on the head of the screw? An industrial strength Loctite was used on the head of the screw, making it damn near impossible to unscrew that screw without either stripping the head of the screw or breaking the screw off completely. And that's even after putting WD-40 on it, because that WD-40 is not going to penetrate down into the threads and break loose an industrial strength Loctite. And so after going to the second screw, bam, exact thing happened that I thought would happen. The strength of that Loctite was so permeated in the threads that the screw did not have any recourse but to snap when enough pressure was applied to its head to take it loose. And even worse, the rest of the screws, they didn't even give me the courtesy of breaking it completely off, but instead they stripped. Each screw stripped. So I have 2 screws out, 4 screws remaining that are all stripped. And then this screw here, I tried to take out by using this clever kit that it was suggested that I use, which is a screw extractor. So the thing is with these screw extractors is, what you do is you take the drilling or the boring end of the screw extractor and you put the drill in reverse, and then you just simply spin it in reverse and completely bore out the Allen ridges or the hex key ridges that are in the head of the screw. And then you take the opposite end, keeping the screw in reverse, and you punch it down in there good, and you slowly try to get this end to grip onto the screw and officially just pull it out. But as you can see, these did not even work. And they are made out of a hard material. So it just, I instantly stripped them as soon as I tried it. So after that, I proceeded to try to take a chisel and a hammer and just simply knock the heads of the screw off, hoping that I could get the heads of the screw off and then just basically slide the rim off and get new screws. And with the, with only the threads of the screw sticking in there, I could get those off. I mean, that's not a problem because I have all kind of grip pliers. And this is just the back tire. I haven't even touched the front tire yet. And it's safe to say that I'm pretty sure that they use industrial strength Loctite on the screws for the front motor as well. So all you Dualtron owners that are contemplating on changing your tires, or if you have changed your tires and you ran into this problem, I would like to know, what did you do to resolve it, or did you have an issue with the screws not being able to come off? At this point, I'm shaking my head and saying to myself, why would you put an industrial strength Loctite on a screw in such a place where you knew that eventually I would have to change my tires? I mean, did you create this? Did the manufacturers think about this? Or I understand the importance of safety and having those screws in there good and tight, but hey, you could have used some blue Loctite. Manufacturers would actually use an industrial strength adhesive on this thing. It boggles my mind to think about that, because it's like no consideration for the fact that you would eventually have to, take your tires off to change them. And it just makes me question a lot of the manufacturing processes that are used for electric scooters. Do they put these things together with the consumers in mind, or do they just throw them together so that they can make a quick sale? Don't ever let anyone tell you that changing the tire on the Dualtron X2 is easy peasy. I just broke one of my screws right down in there. Oops. Just broke one of my screws there. Don't know if you can see it. And that, my friend, is a headache. After a 2-week-long process of working to change the tires on my Dualtron X2, I'm finally here at the ultimate moment of completing the whole process. And man, what a headache this was. If you guys are changing your tires for the first time on the Dualtron X2, be prepared for the dreaded stripped hex screws, because each of the hex screws are put on with the industrial strength glue or some kind of Loctite, or I don't know what the hell it is, but the stuff that they use on these tires is just ridiculous. It's like no consideration for the consumer who has to change his tires for the first time. I mean, first of all, they use these cheap screws. They use these cheap screws, and then they put an industrial strength glue on it, so that once you after even putting heat on the glue, I mean heat on the screw, which is what I had to do, and I have my heat gun here where I had to put heat on the motor itself where the screws were set just to be able to break them loose. And then still I ran into a situation where some did not even break loose because the screw was so cheap, and the head just popped right off of it. And so I went through all kinds of scenarios over these past 2 weeks of getting that strip screw out. I tried screw extractors. I don't suggest using screw extractors because these screws do not have a deep enough head on them so that you can put a screw extractor in them and then drill it back out. The thing that I suggest is basically being prepared to completely knock the head off the screw, and possibly pull the rim off over the exposed top of the screw, because the rim itself does not have a threaded hole, but the motor has the threaded hole that holds the rim onto the motor. So I would say be prepared to get the screws off in that manner. And then another problem that you'll possibly run into is if you can't get the screw heads off, and you have to drill the screw heads off, it's a possibility that you may flatten those screw heads while trying to drill them off. And if you flatten those screw heads inside of this well where the screws are located at, and this is just one of the new screws that I just bought. I bought a stronger screw to replace the cheaper screws with that came with the scooter. But one of the problems that you'll run into once you flatten that head is that you have to completely, literally saw the rim off of the tire. And that was the only way I was able to get this old rim off. I had to completely saw it off with a hacksaw, and that was a lot of work. I was able to, for the front tire, I was able to get 5 screws out, as you can see here, but one, the top broke on one as I was trying to get it out, and that's after putting a whole lot of heat on it. I mean, for over a minute, I heated that thing up to try to get that screw to loosen up on the inside of it before it stripped. And it still stripped, and then I still ended up with a flat screw that I had to saw the rim off in order to get it off. And that was just the front rim here. But the back rim is the one that really caused me the most headache. Let me pull it out here. The back rim caused me the most headache. As you can see, I had to literally saw 4 of the connectors off of this back rim, 3 of the connectors off of this back rim here, in order to get it off. And let me put a little light on it so you can see it a little bit more clear. See, I literally had to saw those off just to get the rim off. And this was all because, and I still could have rode a little while longer on those tires. As you can see, they still have decent shred on it, but the back tire, it was beginning to buckle with some cracks and stuff in it. And so I decided to go ahead and purchase the tires. And FYI, each one of these tires are $100 a piece when they're included on the rim. And I think that, the Dualtron X2's rims, tires has to be included on the rims, because it would pretty much be almost damn near impossible to get that rubber off the rim because it's so tight on there. But I'm pretty sure you can, with the right tools and equipment. But okay, and if you're wondering what's the best way to change the brakes on the Dualtron X2, the best way to change them is by taking the tire completely off. And before I forget, there's something else important that I meant to mention. Before you can take that front tire off the Dualtron X2, you're gonna have to definitely fold down that stem, because by folding down the stem, you give yourself a little wiggle room to get that wire, that phase wire from the rim, extended out a little further, so that you'll have some room to move the tire off of the scooter without putting too much stress on that on the phase wire. I forgot to mention that before, but that was a very important part. And then you'll probably have to unravel the wire covering in order to pull that out. And that includes the brake caliper as well, so you can pull the brake caliper out as well. Because if you don't take the tire completely off, you got to deal with these screws that are underneath your fender, trying to take them loose, because you cannot slide the brake pads right down onto the caliper with the tire on. And then you can't pull the caliper out like I have it out right now with the tire off. So the best way to put those brake pads on there is after you have removed the tire. Yeah, there we go. Pop them right in there. Then you can take your pan, put it right through there, and voila. Matter of fact, this is my new pen right here. And then I just take my pen and bend it back. And then when I'm putting my tire back on, all I have to do is just slide the brake caliper right over the disc here, and then align it back behind this clamp here to hold it up there. And if I need to make some adjustments to it whenever I put the tire back on, all I have to do is just loosen up these screws right here, squeeze the handle, and then tighten it back up, and then it should be aligned just perfect. So this is a twofer video about changing the tires as well as about changing the brake pads. So when I changed my tires, I figured I might as well go ahead and change my brake pads. Plus it was time, actually. Matter of fact, let me see. Yeah, these are the old brake pads that were on the front of the Dualtron X2, and they were gone. They were like toast. As you can see, there's hardly anything left on. And that's because I haven't been using regenerative braking, but I think I'm gonna play with the light regenerative braking or ABS braking so that I can save my brake pads a little bit, because I think it took me I think I rode on these for about 1,500 miles before I had to change them. So that's that. That was this has been a hell of a job. This has been a hell of a job, and it definitely made me aware of just how less scooter manufacturers care about the consumers who purchase their scooters. I mean, it has literally made me realize that certain scooters I don't need to buy anymore. If they put them together so that I cannot do basic maintenance on them, why in the hell would I want to pay $6,500 to buy it? I mean, look at the Wolf Warrior over here. Now, I've done everything to the Wolf Warrior. I mean, I've changed the tires on them before. I've changed the brake pads on them before. It was easy peasy. And I've even put oil in my shocks to, replenish the oil in my shocks. And all of that work, it was basic. It was easy to do. The screws were not, in there so tight that I couldn't get them out. I've worked on this for 2 weeks now. I've missed a lot of days of good riding that I could just got out and just, enjoyed myself and rode. And so, also on a final note, I ended up having to remove the covers, my RGB light coverings for the DX2, and while trying to get those off, they were on there so difficult that I also had to break one of those, and so I decided to just take both of them completely off. And so that's another thing that you should look out for if you're changing your tires for the first time on the DX2. And that's that. With that, this is your boy John Q with this exhausting tire change experience, and I'm out. Peace.